evening, and thank you for joining us. We are going to discuss the major issue of short-term rental market in the Greek region, and it's an issue which has troubled many property owners, tens of thousands actually, and managers in the Greek market, especially post-COVID, which is wreaking havoc in terms of bookings, in terms of planning ahead. And I believe that we are very fortunate to have with us one of the most qualified people to discuss about this issue is Mr. Giacomo Trovato. He's been getting thousands of calls on a daily basis from worried owners and hosts. He's the country manager for Italy and Southeast Europe, which is, of course, with Airbnb, which is, of course, one of the most popular region in Europe for Airbnb in general. And I'd like to discuss with you, first of all, the experience that you had in terms of the fall since the outbreak of the pandemic. What has been the impact in the market from the beginning of March or late February, which I think was the beginning of the crisis, and up until today, in terms of both the number of listings that you are witnessing and the number of bookings or cancellations of them?
Yes, first of all, hello everybody. Unfortunately, I don't speak Greek, so I will try to do my best with English. Yes, I joined Airbnb actually last August, so it's been 9 months now. And so we finished 2019, we started the new year, we had done plans, and then all of a sudden, all the plans sort of collapsed. We saw the Greek market that was growing very nicely in January and February. And then starting from the end of February, as the news of the contagion came up and the number of cases rose, we saw that the number of bookings on the one side went down dramatically. And then on the other hand, the number of cancellations of existing bookings spiked. Globally, what happened in Airbnb is that we were literally inundated with telephone calls from guests from all over the world. And what they were telling us was, we cannot depart, we cannot reach our destination. So the first challenge that we faced was, how are we going to tackle that situation? And so initially, we really were very granular in sort of reimbursing guests from regions that had prohibited to travel. But when the OMS, actually the World Health Organization, declared the pandemic, then we applied this extenuating circumstances policy, allowing all the guests to receive a reimbursement for their reservation. And it was a difficult decision because on the other side, we were aware that there were hosts that were relying on that money, but we prioritized the health of the population. What we didn't want was that to avoid losing money, people put themselves and their communities at risk. But in essence, what we saw is that in March and especially in April, that the business almost completely collapsed, especially in April where it really bottomed. We didn't see, to your question, an impact in the number of properties in Greece. We had around 119,000 properties at the end of 2019, and actually up to last week, they increased by almost 4,000. So people, that's our perception, still believe that there will be business after the crisis, and they are suffering and resisting, but with the hope that the business will resume. And we are convinced that it will resume. And we're seeing some early signal that it will.
Before we go to that, what measures have you adopted in order to support your hosts? Because we know that you gave some reimbursements to the visitors. What about the hosts? Because if I'm not mistaken, globally you had a special fund set up for this. Was it just for the US market or for all hosts across the globe?
Yeah. So I would. What did we do? I would sort of segment my answer in three phases. In an initial phase, we found that the houses were empty, and so we asked ourselves, and the host asked themselves, what can we do with the houses empty? People are not traveling for tourism, and so what we did is that we launched a program to support doctors, nurses, medical professional to basically that were helping out in the emergency. The problem of these medical professionals that sometimes they were struggling to find an accommodation. And so thanks also to an initiative of the Greek host that was born bottom up, we supported that initiative, we amplified, and so in partnership with Hellenic National Public Health Organization, we launched a program in Greece. So that was really phase one, where the business was sort of zero, and we tried to support with the houses. Then, as you said, we sort of reimbursed the guests, but then we thought that we needed to support also the host, and we established two funds. One was a $250 million fund for the hosts that had cancellation penalties, that could not get the penalties because of the pandemic. And so with this fund, we reimburse them for a part of the cancellation penalties that they lost. And then our employees committed part of their salary to create another fund that was then expanded by the founders of 17 million, that was instead allocated to the more casual host that were more dependent on the revenues coming from hosting. These are global funds, so everybody in the world that had a cancellation penalty that they lost received a reimbursement for part of that cancellation penalty. And instead, for the, let's say, more casual host, we assessed basically those hosts that were more dependent on the revenues. And had a major damage. And so we invited them to apply. But the program was absolutely global.
Okay. And since then, have you seen the market recovering from the low point it reached during April? Because from my point of view, the first numbers of May are very encouraging. Perhaps not to the level that were before the pandemic, but certainly way above what they were in March and April.
Yes, you're right. So let me give a picture of let's say, the situation pre-COVID. So the Greek market again was growing nicely year over year, and the market was mainly an international market. So almost 80% of the touristic flows in Greece were coming from abroad, and the main corridors were the US, Germany, the UK, and France. What happened is that, again, as I said, the business bottom up in April. Since then, we've seen a nice recovery in May, and this recovery is almost entirely driven by domestic travel.
Greece also.
See, Greek people that are booking in their country and are catching up to almost the same level as last year, almost, where we still have some gap to cover, but I'm seeing a very good recovery. So apparently Greek people are really choosing their country for their vacation, which is great. The problem, however, is that a lot of the travelers before were foreigners. So for Greece to fully recover, it's important that also this international travel can catch up. So we are still pretty much behind in that area, but we are seeing some early sign of recovery, especially from Germany, which is very good. I tend to believe that recovering from the US, which was the main corridor for Greece, will be more difficult. But I think that Germany, the UK, and France are already showing some sign of recovery, especially Germany. And in terms of destinations, what we are seeing is that the areas that are catching up faster are Alkidiki, and sorry for the pronunciation, Alkidiki and Thessaloniki. Whereas
northern Greece.
yes,
the northern
whereas
part of Greece.
the gap today is a little bit bigger in the islands, Crete and Corfu, and Athens is a little bit in the middle between these two extremes. So that's the picture today. But so last week the number of nights booked was double versus 2 weeks before. So I think it's a good sign of recovery, and we're hoping that it continues in the coming weeks.
Do you expect this summer season to spill over into autumn? Perhaps, rescuing part of the revenues. Will we see an improved market during September and October, perhaps, which are months that are with high temperatures as well in Greece, so that we can, see an upwards momentum there compared to last year, perhaps?
So what we are seeing right now is that people are focusing mainly on June and July. So I think Greece did a very good job to contain the contagion. And so the line of sight of people so far is relatively in the short term. So we are seeing that approximately almost 60% of the bookings that we are seeing are for June, and another 20% more or less for July. And
Okay.
the remaining 20% is after July. So it's really people I guess are sort of focusing right now on the current situation, and as things evolve, and if the situation continues to be positive in Greece, I think we will see new bookings in the next weeks that will target more August and September. So I expect that if the situation keeps being positive, we will see a further recovery in the following months. What I can say is that we are working very intensely with the Greek host on basically 3 areas. One is we want to basically address a potential concern of travelers. If I book now, will I get back the money if for whatever reason I cannot travel? So we are pushing for the adoption of flexible cancellation policies, and more than 50% of the properties in Greece have already those policies. So the travelers can get back the money until few days before departing. The second area is about cleaning. There is a potential concern about the fact that the house has been properly sanitized. And we will launch in June a sanification protocol that has been developed in partnership with the health authority, like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, that we have shared also with the tourism minister in Greece and with the Hellenic National Public Health Organization. So basically, hosts will be able to be trained on the protocol, and if they are certified, there will be a message in the listing. Then the third area that we are working is really on. We know that a lot of people will have potentially a reduced budget for the vacation, and so we want to make sure to set up some promotions so that there are good offers out there for the travelers that want to find a good deal. And so we are working also on that dimension with the Greek hosts.
Okay. Mr. Trovato, I think, yes, these are the main issues. I mean, safety, of course, sanitization, of course, and prices will be an issue this year. Hopefully, in order to weather the storm, let's say, and emerge on the other side, which should be 2021. Thank you very much, Mr. Trovato, for your insight on what's going on the market right now.
Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure to stay with you.